Hello everyone, my name is CHD-111. I'm a pharmacist by training. I've been working in the pharmaceutical industry on carbohydrates and their industrial applications for about 15 years. And I'm going to present you CarboHyde and one of our assets, CHD-111, which we developed for Parkinson's disease. CarboHyde is a small private pharmaceutical company that we incorporated in February 2022 with a group of carbohydrate lovers, because we're fascinated in these molecules and the wide range of applications that they can be used for. In the beginning, we selected a small number of target indications that we are developing compounds for. I think it's important to explain why and how we did what the incorporation, where the idea came from. Most of us were working in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time. The cumulative experience in this field is well over 50 years, but in different areas. But we have a very good understanding of carbohydrate chemistry, which is very difficult, among the most difficult ones in the industry. And we had a lot of innovative ideas, and we were really passionate about developing new stuff and understanding better how carbohydrates could be used in different therapeutic applications. Due to our experience in the industry, we also had a very good network and a lot of existing collaborations that we could use in the development itself. So we grouped up with a few number of experts in this field and found a company with a very unique culture based on a lot of freedom and flexibility, but also a lot of commitment to bring something new to the market and to develop something meaningful. And as I mentioned, we selected a few topics that we work on that I'm going to present on a high level, focusing on one of the assets in more detail. About the team itself, the company was founded by two individuals. Joseph is a medical doctor working in anesthesia, and he is also doing clinical practice, and he is the operating CEO of the company now. And David has more like a business experience and marketing experience. The first two hires of the company were two seasoned veterans in the carbohydrate field, Milo Malanga and Mihai Palin. They both have over a decade experience in developing novel carbohydrates and exploring innovative applications of these molecules. Later, we expanded the team with chemists having experience not only in synthesis, but also in analytics, scale-up, technology transfer, manufacturing, and with Gergely also business and strategic aspects of the company. Since the core expertise of the team is mostly in the chemical part of the preclinical development, so as I said, manufacturing, chemistry, formulation development, analytics, the scientific board of the company is aimed to balance this with experience in the from one point of view in the business side and from other point of view in the biological side of the development. So these experts are medical doctors and biologists who support the team with selecting the most proper experiments and in vitro and animal studies to evaluate the compounds that we develop. How we see the company in a mid and longer term is to become a well-established pharmaceutical company where we foster innovative applications of carbohydrates. We do not really prefer to have a very well-defined target application, because our core expertise is the chemistry of the carbohydrate, not the application of the carbohydrate. So we welcome new projects that aim innovative applications from from all kinds of the pharmaceutical industry, even though the projects that we selected currently seem to be focused on CNS applications. We are really openly exploring for the future new possibilities, new therapeutic indications, and new applications beyond. As a model, what we have in mind is we're thinking about CarboHyde as a long-term company, and we would like to license out and partner the discoveries that we make and the technologies that we develop to other pharmaceutical companies, and we're building our professional network accordingly. Just a little bit about carbohydrates, why it's important to deal with carbohydrates. This is a very complicated chemistry because to make these compounds is really challenging, even compared to other synthetic molecules. But carbohydrates are extremely important to a myriad of different biological functions, and using carbohydrates as active ingredients is not a new discovery. There are quite a few compounds that are either carbohydrates or contain carbohydrate moieties on the market. As you can see, several of these are antibacterials or other anti-infectious agents, but there are quite a few compounds for rare diseases, for cancer therapy. There are also components of nucleotides, so the possibilities are really vast, and our company just took a small part of this whole picture that we're dealing with currently. Just to underline the expertise that we have, the core expertise is in the synthesis and the manufacturing. We all came from the industry, so we understand how a new compound should be developed right from the very beginning to make it industrially applicable, economic, feasible, so that these the next steps of the development do not really pose a burden. And that's what we focus on from the very beginning. Compounds that are not just interesting scientifically, but are also potentially industrializable, and that could be translated into human studies and then later marketed. We also have some regulatory expertise. In the past, many of us have developed new active ingredients and discussed with regulatory authorities, both with the FDA and the EMA. I myself also served as an expert in the carbohydrate working group in the EMA for over 6 years. So we have a good understanding of how these compounds should be characterized and designed from the very beginning. And as I said, we have a very good network among the pharmaceutical companies. So we already know and identified some of the companies that in the end or later we plan to present the new assets and the new technologies that we develop. A little bit about the compounds and the assets that we're developing. The first three, as you can see, CHD-101, CHD-111, and CHD-201 are all active ingredients which are all targeting different neurodegenerative diseases, although they are chemically different and they are accordingly designed for different therapeutic indications. CHD-111 is one that I'm going to present today that we intend to evaluate in Parkinson studies. CHD-101 is a drug planned for rare diseases, and CHD-201 is to be designed for Alzheimer's. We also have two completely different assets that we are developing. CHD-401 is a novel carbohydrate-based vaccine adjuvant, and CHD-501 is a drug delivery system for that we are developing for oral delivery of oligonucleotides, specifically for Crohn's disease within a European consortia. So let's talk a little bit more about CHD-111. This is a new chemical entity, so a compound not existing currently on the market, and the discovery goes back to a few years, which may verse a minute to explain. So this is a cyclodextrin-based active ingredient, and cyclodextrins are generally recognized in the pharmaceutical industry currently as excipients, and that's the mainstream use of cyclodextrins. Approximately a decade ago, there was an accidental discovery which revealed that certain cyclodextrins could be used as active ingredients themselves, and in this case specifically in a rare disease called Niemann Pick type C, cyclodextrins have been used successfully both in vitro and in animal models as the active ingredient themselves to not to cure but to treat with an unprecedented efficacy the disease that no one was expecting. Of course, our compound is not aimed for this disease, but this discovery led to a wide variety of subsequent studies where they or companies and academic groups started to explore the therapeutic potential of cyclodextrins in other disorders, which led to an evaluation in Parkinson's disease where cyclodextrin called HBBCD, or abbreviated as HBBCD, which is a very common pharmaceutical excipient, was evaluated in a very high dose in different models of Parkinson's disease. And surprisingly, it was found efficient. The researchers also started to explore the underlying mechanism of action, and now it's revealed that cyclodextrins can trigger autophagy, so they can contribute to the cleanup mechanism of the cells, and they could also contribute to an increased expression of transcription factor EB, and via this also trigger the clearance of accumulated components in Parkinson's disease. And eventually this excipient also seemed to be successful in animal models. As you can see here in the figure, the dose is really high, so 2 grams per body weight kilogram, which is of course not a realistic long-term therapy, but anyhow it was approved that cyclodextrins on their own could work in Parkinson's disease. And similar, conceptually similar studies were done also in Alzheimer's disease, and for instance in Alzheimer's there's already a cyclodextrin-based drug in clinical phase 2 ongoing. But with the Parkinson's, this was the no further progression was done. Now, what's the problem with this particular cyclodextrin that is used, and why do we need such a huge dose? To start with, this is an excipient, so this particular cyclodextrin was never designed to be an active ingredient. It's a mixture of components, thousands of components, so it's not easy to characterize, it's not easy to follow within the body. Once it degrades, it's not easy to, or I would rather say it's impossible to identify the degradation products. If there are side effects, you cannot really attribute to a certain component what is causing the side effects. You cannot really know what is causing the effect itself. So from a drug development point of view, the molecule is far from ideal. Also, the pharmacokinetics of these cyclodextrins are not really favored for an active ingredient. It clears out of the body very quickly. The half-life is around 1 hour, and technically there is no or very limited permeation to the brain even after parenteral administration. Just a few % of the drug gets into the central nervous system. So with all these features, it's now understandable why you need such a huge dose of the cyclodextrin to be effective, and why it's not a compound, despite its efficacy, favored for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. And here is where we came up with the idea. That is, of course, a combination of our expertise in the medicinal chemistry and our understanding of cyclodextrins. So I cannot share the structures of the compounds that we have, but I could explain the concept, what we follow. So we are designing cyclodextrins that are well-defined single chemical entities, like a common active ingredient. So you can define that this is exactly the molecule we are working with. You can define that these are the potential degradation products of the compound. You can quantify each one of them in the model, in the animal models. You can follow clearly the pharmacokinetics, the pharmacodynamics, the metabolic pathway of the compound, and so on. So it's really a drug-like compound. The other innovation that we are introducing the molecule is that we are conducting a wide set of structure-activity relationships. So we are not just taking a cyclodextrin off the shelf, which was existing as an excipient, but we are screening, and we have already done a screening of 30 plus different cyclodextrins to understand what are the key structural moieties that are needed to have a positive effect in Parkinsonian models. And the third improvement that we are doing is that we are actively targeting the brain. So we have introduced a targeting strategy which drives the cyclodextrin to the receptors of the blood-brain barrier, and we have shown that these modifications can improve the permeation through the blood-brain barrier by over an order of magnitude. So these are the key features of the compounds that we are creating now in the lab. What we are planning to do in the coming months and years are highlighted in the roadmap. So now we are working on optimization of the synthesis this year, and some reasonable scale up to support further animal studies, which we plan to conduct later this year. We haven't filed a patent yet for the compounds that we're developing. That is also planned either by the end of this year or early next year, along with further non-GLP safety studies and animal studies. And if all those are promising, then we plan to do a scale up and make the first GMP batches sometime later next year, along with initiating further IND enabling studies. We really believe that that cyclodextrins have a huge potential as active ingredients, not only in the CNS fields, but certainly the data generated by us and also to some extent other companies support that they have a novel mechanism of action. They can be used either in monotherapy or combined with other products due to their different mechanisms in age-related diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. But there is still a lot to understand, and our expertise is really in the medicinal chemistry, and we believe that we have a really one-of-a-kind crew and toolbox in our hands to create drug-like cyclodextrins that can make these compounds really druggable and efficient, so that no one needs to take 2 or 4 grams per body weight kilogram to have an efficient therapy. And this can open up new ways for a completely new set of compounds in the longevity fields that we could develop. I hope I was clear and I could explain everything, but of course, if hopefully this raises a lot of questions from your end that we can talk about in subsequent sections. Thank you very much for your attention.